Hello, nerdy romantics. We are here. This is our first podcast of 2026, y'all.
Woo!
Our first podcast of 2026 is a nerdy one, and we are talking today about Marvel's Wonder Man, the series on Disney Plus currently. So stay tuned. And as always, there will be spoilers, y'all. There will be spoilers. So stay tuned. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson. Okay, how's it going, y'all? How are you doing?
Really good. Excited.
All right, cool.
I'm doing
So,
fine.
all right, good. I was gonna say, Stacy, come on. So obviously we have here today, we have Marcie and Staci, guest hosts, that are going to talk Wonder Man with us. And we have, I'll say via email, we have Carrie, recurring guest host, talking Wonder Man as well. His voice won't be here. We'll say that. So first off, how did everybody find out about this? Did we care? Did we want to know? I know that we briefly talked about the upcoming Disney stuff in one of our last, I believe in December, one of our podcast episodes in December. We briefly talked about it. But y'all, I didn't put it on the schedule for some reason. So for anybody that was actually looking forward to this. I can't believe I didn't put this on the schedule, but were y'all looking forward to it? Were you wanting to see it? Had it fallen off your radar like evidently it had fallen off mine? Marcie, you my first blood. What did you think?
I found about it because I get the emails from Disney Plus.
Oh,
So yeah,
they
because
have
I'm
emails.
yeah,
Oh,
they sent you emails about what's up, what's coming up. And so I had seen that. But to be honest, other than knowing the name of it, I didn't really know a lot about it. So initially I was like, oh, that'll be cool. And then I got another update when it actually started airing.
okay. Yeah. Mark, Stacy, what about you?
I don't recall why I thought about Wonder Man. I know it was during the time where there's like nothing on TV at the time. And so, when you're going through and it's like, things that you might like. And it showed something that Wonder Man. And so I went to the Disney station or whatever. And I just took a look at it. And it's like, okay, I got nothing. I don't have anything else, and I started to watch it. And then that's why I asked you, later on, like, hey, are you gonna do anything about Wonder Man since it's part of the Marvel universe? And I sent you that message. Have you been watching it? But it wasn't really on my radar. Really none of the I haven't been watching a lot of Marvel film. I haven't been like, oh gosh, the next Marvel film has got to come up. Which one's the next one? I have not been that way for a while. So when it just came across, I was like, okay, then I'll try to watch it, and I won't go into much detail until we start talking more about how I felt about it. But that's how I just saw it. It's just something that came up on things you might watch or whatever algorithm that comes up. That's like you watch this kind of stuff. Hey, this is something else you might want to watch. That kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I said, it just fell off my radar. And as most of my listeners already know, I'm in job search at the moment. So my Hulu/Disney Plus was turned on pause. So I got to see nothing about it coming up until Stacy, you said Wonder Man, and I thought, why isn't this? Because I remember us saying it was coming up. For some reason, I was thinking that it was later on in the year, like right around the time when all of the superhero movies are coming out, and X-Men 97 season 2 is coming out supposedly in the summer. Everything happens in the summer, it seems like, on the superhero front. So it wasn't even on my radar until, Stacy, you said something and I said, "Oh gosh, you know what? I don't even have this on the podcast. Why don't I have this on the podcast list here?" So I am actually glad you reminded me about it. And I'm glad I put it on the podcast list, because my impressions of it were that it was very, very good. I mean, overall, what did y'all think about it? Stacey, your mic is open.
Well, I didn't put it up, so that's still open. Well, okay, the first time I watched it, and it was like, and Marcie knows how I'll be watching stuff if no one's here in the house. I kind of get up and move around, so it's just to make me sit down. And initially, I was like, "What is this?" And I really was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it." I wasn't really into it. But the thing was, I wasn't into it because I kept thinking of it as a superhero Marvel movie. And that's what I expected, like a Marvel movie. And then you start watching it, and it's like, this is just a dude trying to get his acting career started.
Yeah.
And then, when you watch that, it's like it wasn't enough to initially to gain my interest to kind of watch it. And then when I mentioned that we're gonna watch it, and it's like when you said, "Yeah, I think we might do something," it's like, okay, let me go ahead and sit down and watch it. And then I also had to kind of take back, like, don't see it as being a superhero movie, or even like the Marvel TV shows, like you have WandaVision, and then you have Agnes all along, you had all those Hawkeye, you have have all those that have come up, and they are truly superhero, or those characters. I'm not a big comic book fan, so I didn't know anything about Wonder Man. I had no clue about who he was, what was his background story, nothing. And so I came in thinking, all right, when he's gonna do his wonderful, what's making him Wonder Man? What's he gonna,
Right.
whatever. And it's like, and that wasn't something that was coming across. And it was once I kind of put it back, like, okay, if Marvel wasn't there, just watch the show as Wonder Man and just watch it. And then I started to enjoy it because I just quit trying to think of what was he gonna do, as in a superhero, a regular superhero book, and more a superhero comic versus a guy who has a goal, has dreams, who happens to have special gifts, not trying to, that's not his focus. Not saying that it won't develop later, but a guy really finding himself. And you think of it as that kind of format, that's like, oh, this is a good, he just so happens to have have special powers. That's
Right.
not what makes him who he is. Which, whether you watch the others, other stuff, that's what makes those people special. Like, okay, it's their gifts, their powers, and he's like, that might be a power, but that's not who I am. I'm trying to be the best actor that I can. And when you watch that first one, I do think, like, dude, you're in your way so much. I mean, that first episode, and I was
Yes.
like, read the room, shut your mouth, and keep this job.
Yes.
I mean, he was like, I mean, I'm not saying he didn't have good points, but it's like, you are not even you're not one of the leads on this show. So you're just just act and keep
Mhm.
going. And he ends up, I mean, I'm noting this is a spoiler. He ends up losing that first, losing that job because of he wants to. Well, how about what's the dynamic? I understand wanting to know that, but he was just doing way too much for what he was for his role. He was not doing an Oscar performance. He was doing one show from a TV
Right.
series. That's it. This could have, if he stayed with it, a reoccurring role, maybe. I don't know. But but it wouldn't have. But what he was doing is like, I don't know. I was irritated. I guess part of it was I was irritated too with him on that first one. But he irritated everybody, it seemed. That's why he lost the job.
Yeah.
So, but as I kept watching it, then it's like, oh, you see his struggles. And I mean, I'll give Marcie a chance. I'm sorry to keep on talking, but I think, you, as you go along, you see his growth and understand where he's coming from, and you'll see, let me just stop until you go to the next question and let Marcie go ahead and
Well,
talk.
Stacy, respond. I mean, I'm just letting everybody talk. But since you're saying that, Marcie, I do want to ask you kind of to what you thought of that first, because I have some feelings too. What did you think of A, when you first got into it and you first started watching it, and B, Wonder Man the character? I mean, obviously, none of us here that are talking on the podcast know about the comic book character, but I'll bring some of what Perry has to say about that in later. But I want to know what you thought of first going in.
So I will say that because Stacy had already watched it, I did have the benefit of a summary from her that let me start where she started the second time, which is with the knowledge to not look at this as a superhero show. So I did get to adjust my lens before I started. Now, that being said, I, like Stacy, was sick of him because at some point, you're right, he didn't learn to read a room until far longer than it should have taken him. And I did get annoyed because he really was, I mean, he was digging deep for like a guest host, like a guest role. To Stacy's
Yes.
point, he wasn't even like a series regular at this point. And I get that, and I get that he was trying to be the best, but I think Stacy was right in that it was the best demonstration of getting in your own way that I
Mm-hmm.
have ever seen, like in film. And it really did, kind of help me to adjust my thinking about how I show up in rooms as well, because he was in his own way a lot, a lot. But because I didn't expect it to be a superhero movie, I wasn't looking, or a superhero series, I wasn't looking for that. So I did get to start immersing myself in the story. And I do think that I started to become engaged in the plot as it was often hard because he often got on my nerves. But because he was getting on everybody's nerves, it was easier because I felt like it was a shared experience. The people on the screen were reacting like I was reacting. So I felt like, okay, we're all on the same page, right? I think, and I'm like Stacy, I don't know how far to go. I, being Kingsley fan, also having seen, I'm just gonna call him Abdul because I don't remember his hyphenated last name, but having seen Abdul in some other things and being a fan of him as well, I was glad to see him be the lead in something. So I really wanted to support that as well. And being Kingsley, was super excited to see him still working. So I enjoyed that part of it as well. And then once the story got rolling, I really did start to enjoy it. I also had the benefit of Stacy's guidance that it was a bit of a slow start. You had to keep going. I'll save that part for later. But once the story got rolling, I really did get engaged in it, and I got like caught up in the story. I think if you like a conspiracy, sci-fi, like it had all those elements to it, but it also was like a buddy comedy, and also like it had a bunch of different kind of pieces. So I do think that there was a little bit of something for everybody in it.
Mhm.
And so I think from that perspective, I did enjoy the ride but I did have the knowledge of what the ride was going to be like. And so I thank Stacy for that because I do think it helped better inform my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to echo pretty much to a certain extent what both of you are saying, what everybody's saying, in that yes, he was annoying in that beginning. You know, it's funny because he's acting as an actor. It's very meta. Writers like to do this too. Every now and then, a writer is going to have a story or a book about being a writer. Their main character is a writer, and it's always something different. So this is really meta. But at the same time, I was like, you're annoying the crap out of me right now. He was so annoying in the beginning. And as somebody who's been in job search for like ever, you are about to get fired, dude. Like, don't do this. Don't do this. Because spoiler alert, as we have already said, his particular character was like everybody said, could have been a long running character, and the character was on an episode of American Horror Story, which is a big show.
If you get your foot into American Horror Story, you there forever. They bring you
Exactly. If
back
they
for
like
every
you, they
season.
like you.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. I was just thinking you could have had it. I'm like, oh my gosh! And then when they were giving that look to each other, I was like, oh Lord, they're about to write him off. And I think even in that particular scene, he was supposed to be lying there, like he was supposed to be dead or something. And I think, weren't they going to just write his character totally out?
Yeah, I mean,
after
I think
that
it was
or
just
something?
short. Like when I saw it, I was like, I see he's trying to be. He's like perfectionist. He wants to be
Yes.
doing the best, and I understand that. But But at the same time, you were just a bit part, because even the
Right.
guy's like, oh, he was like the golf carts, and he's like, oh no, only the regulars get the golf cart. And it's like, you're not getting the golf, you walk him to it because you're not of that caliber. And I can understand wanting some clarification on the background, maybe of your character, but he was going just like he was going to be a major motion picture, and I want to, it was just annoying because I see that he wants to be good, but at the same time, it's like you were doing way too much. I was gonna say, like, you're the side dish, but you're not even the macaroni of this thing. You
Right.
are somebody.
Girl, he was ketchup. He was a
You're the
condiment.
condiment
He
that
was a
someone brought.
condiment, and not
So
even a necessary one.
Well,
He was like relish. It's there
Right.
because somebody
there.
might want it, but it's not required
Right, and
to
then
make
you're
this
doing
thing go.
and you're acting like you do, turkey or the macaroni and cheese. You're acting like you're somebody, and you're not. And I understand wanting to be the best relish you are, but you getting out your lane. And he got out of his lane and he lost the job. And you felt bad for him because you see how much he wanted the role, see much preparation he did for the role. But at the same time, it's like, I see how much you're trying to do to get the role, and I'm still annoyed by what you just did. That
Right.
was it. And I had to do that. That's good acting too, because I like them. I like them in other
Yes.
stuff. And as the thing goes on, and it does show character development and I forgot Ben Kingsley's, what was it name of his? Trevor
Slattery.
Trevor helped him, like, tone it down. You're taking it. Someone who has acting experience, who had a career, and granted, he was a little bit off trail, got off track because he was a terrorist for a bit,
Right. He was a terrorist for a little bit.
But he played that role well.
Right.
He did. With gravitas.
But he was able to, like, you can be a great actor, but you don't have to take this to this level. You don't have to take it as seriously as you are and have fun with it, because he was like, you're not having fun with it, you're not enjoying it. And I like that Ben Kingsley gave him knowledge of someone who has experience in acting, but at the same time understands that you need to calm down, take it down a notch,
Exactly.
and enjoy what you're doing. That's
and when he said, like, be in the moment, I think that was one of the biggest things when he kept trying to say to him, be in the moment. It's great to prepare, but you got to be in the moment, and you can't be so in your head that you're not to what we were saying, like reading the room, that you're not in the moment. And I think I enjoyed seeing that. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing that, this particular, how the show kind of started, that it reminded me of, was Entourage, because we're seeing actors be actors, and but to me, the difference between this and like Entourage is the shenanigans that they're getting into here are more like superhero shenanigans. Like the regular life is Entourage. We're trying to get this deal. But the other thing too is, I think, with and I'm going to probably butcher his name as well. I'm along with you, Marcie, because I don't have it written down right in front of me.
It's
Mr. Yahya Abdul Mateen the second is focused on his growth as an actor, right? His, like Staci said, his character development, and seeing that arc was really cool versus Entourage. They're just doing a bunch of stuff. And, you know, does the guy who's the actor there, can't remember his character name, but does his character really have an arc in that show, or are we just watching him do outrageous stuff? I think kind of, maybe so, maybe character arc, but I guess probably because this is not a show that's going on for, how many ever seasons Entourage went on for, I think 6 or whatever. This is not going on for that long. But the second thing is that this is for us, if not for everybody else, this is for us. This is an origin story. So basically, we have to see that character arc. We have to see him going through stuff, because in the end, he's going to become a superhero. You know, he's not one right now, but in the end,
Does he? Well,
something's
we
got to
don't know.
happen.
He does do his powers, but doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a superhero. We know,
True.
I'm not saying he isn't, because I don't know nothing about the comics, but we remember that episode when we talked about the Doorman Clause. That guy never used his powers, but he was never a superhero. Well, he was a hero at one point, but not necessarily a superhero.
And what he did, I don't know that automatically makes you a superhero. He could end up being considered a supervillain, not because he's a bad person, but because of the choices he just made, right? And who it was.
Yeah,
I'm trying not to overspoil here at the beginning.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so
I get it, and I'm trying not to as well. Yeah, but I think part of what Terry is saying in his email might spoil some things, but because I know a very itty bitty little bit about Wonder Man, not even that much, but about Wonder Man, which is where the superhero thing comes in. But in the end, he's gonna be somebody with superpowers, and he didn't have superpowers in the beginning. That was my point.
He did.
He did.
He had something, right? But he
had superpowers
really,
because everybody, it was on the government's radar, and this is part of the thing.
He
was that
on the radar.
Second story thing is that they were monitoring him as a potential threat. And that's also what I kind of want to talk about, that is that monitoring of people who have not done anything, but they want, to put them in some sort of facility, even if they haven't done anything yet, just the potential of them being dangerous.
So let's talk about it.
And I think that, to me, embedding Ben Kingsley with him, because that's the second layer, is they want to put him under supervision, so they do, by putting Ben Kingsley in his path. And in so doing, I think that was one of the things I enjoyed the most about the storyline, was watching Ben Kingsley struggle with what they are telling him about Simon and the Simon he's getting to know. And the fact that they're telling him that he's this dangerous and he's all this and that, but as he gets to know him and starts to see him in different environments, and Simon starts to open up about his past and all of that, and he sees what he's really struggling with, I think it just reminds us of people's humanity, despite what differences, specialness, whatever you want to call it, about them there might be. The otherness of people doesn't negate the humanity of people, right? And I think that was one of the things that was really a strong through line for me, was that undercurrent of watching that internal struggle and him trying to decide what he was going to believe. because I think, especially in this climate, that is something that every one of us has to grapple with: is what are we going to believe, and how are we going to let that influence how we treat the people that we encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for me, in a sense, Trevor gets a little bit of a character arc going too,
He
because
does.
him before this
Hmm.
was no.
Hmm.
So he gathers a little bit of depth there too. But Staci, I want to know, you brought this whole thing up. So, what are you thinking about the surveillance of people that haven't done anything wrong, that kind of thing? What do you
Well,
think?
I mean, to me, it's just that. I mean, this is not the only show that's kind of like that. Because when
Yeah.
that movie with Tom Cruise and the psychics, they were putting people in jail before they've done things.
Minority Report.
Minority
Minority Report,
Report.
and there's going to be
Yeah.
like something else that's potential, that's kind of like that too.
Hmm.
And it's not of putting people in, or Galactica, which was like they were
Hmm.
looking at your genetics and saying, oh, if you're going to die early, there's no point of doing this stuff for you because it was
Hmm.
that whole thing about putting people away for something they have not done and may never do and may never use, that they had no control over. It
Hmm.
wasn't, he has done nothing. At that point, there was nothing. The only reason they came up to control came up because he survived something as a child that he probably should have had some sort of, and that kind of got their radar going for that because they didn't even know for certain if he had powers at
Hmm.
that point. And so, just by putting someone in the facility, whatever, for nothing, and I mean, I understand, like, certain, not understand, I don't understand at all, because I don't, we'll have people with superpowers like that, but because but I mean, just saying, putting people away for something they haven't done, limiting where they live, where they can do what just because of things that they have no control over. It, watching that, kind of gave me the ick, seeing that. And
Hmm.
then, stuff that's going on now is like, oh gosh,
Right.
it didn't really make you feel good at all. You're seeing what's going on in the world today, that people are being deported, are taken away from their homes and livelihoods for no other reason, and trying to go through the right channels and do everything, and then they're being taken away. And the
Hmm.
same thing kind of with him is that he's trying to do all the things they should do, but they're trying to trip him up, like they were just trying to see if he displayed anything to justify them putting him in jail or in a facility, whatever they were trying to do. And all he was doing was just trying to act. He wasn't trying to use his powers in any way. He wasn't using it to win the Olympics, or he wasn't trying to use his powers to gain money. He wasn't using it for fame. He wasn't using it for anything at all. Just trying to be an actor. That's all he was trying to do. And having that guy watch him trying to get to the point where he could, to justify. And I felt, I like Ben Kingsley character, that arc that we see for him of, but you also see the pressure that he was in, because he knows, he got out of jail early for being a terrorist when he wasn't. I think that's also why he understood, he had more sympathy for the character, because he knows how to be blamed for something that was not his fault. He answered just advertisement, and next thing you know, he's a terrorist, a worldwide terrorist out there, and
Yeah.
he understands that, but at the same time, he doesn't want to go back now, because no one wants to go to jail, and you
Right.
are hanging that over my head that if you don't find something on him,
Hmm.
we're going to put you back. So it wasn't even like a matter of, he could have, if potentially, if he was the wrong kind of person, made something up to put him in jail, really, if he really wanted to. But we see what he did. Spoilers. You see that he does have a heart, and that he understands the talent that Simon's character has, and just, I guess, the talent he has, and just wants to see him succeed. But he knows that it's going to come at a cost.
Yeah. And this line actually brings me to something that I wasn't even thinking about. I was going to go there, but I wanted to know what y'all thought. This kind of even brings me to the whole Doorman Clause.
Okay, and I think
Go
Marcie
ahead,
asked me about
Stacy.
that.
Go ahead.
Asked me about why they won't let somebody. We had talked about because he hadn't finished watching. He's like, why am I gonna let him? Because I said they won't let him act because if he's got show, they know he has superpowers. He's like, why not? It's going to be, and I tell you, it's the Doorman Clause.
Yep.
You got to wait till you see the Doorman to that episode to realize why. And you see that, and you're like, okay, I see. You realize why you would want to potentially keep an eye on people, but at the same time, I don't see the point of putting someone in jail for something they hadn't done at that point.
Right. And I think
go ahead, Marcie. Yeah.
And I think that it was another, I mean, if we look at the Me Too movement or anything else, there are a lot of people making the same mistakes in Hollywood today. And I think that it was just, it's an extreme reaction to fear. And I think that it's just another place where Marvel implants, like forces that discussion on what happens when you let fear lead in the decisions that you're making, because there's a whole clause and a whole set of people who aren't allowed to follow their dreams or be who they are because of one scenario that happened, because those same people used one person and then didn't have a place for him outside of that, right? So when he tried to be more than what they wanted him to be, then they had no place for him, and then it kind of all just kind of spiraled. So I think it's just one of those things where, I mean, there were a lot of just, I mean, it was some really good acting in there. Like, it was some really good, like, deep kind of content that I think could you can ruminate on for however long you want to, because I think there were so many discussion points. But I think that was like a through line is when people try to get out of the box you put them in, then the establishment gets afraid and then acts out of fear and tries to Stacy's point, to put you in that, force you into that box. And it made me think of things like internment camps and reservations and other times where people weren't really, where the masses weren't sure what to do, so they tried to herd people into spaces and places where they could keep an eye on them. And I think that that's that knee-jerk reaction to fear, to letting fear make policy instead of logic and reason. And I think that it's the thing that Marvel is good at is showing us allegorically what that looks like, right? Giving us a visual of what that looks like.
And also, like when you said the reservation, I like, because one of the guys, that guy who was pressuring Ben Kingsley's character, he's like, I remember he was talking to someone. He says, "Yeah, we got to put some bodies in this thing. We spent all that money on this facility,
too.
And it was like,
and it's empty.
Exactly.
Alligator Alcatraz.
Yes, exactly.
That's exactly what
we built these prisons, and now we have to fill them. You're exactly right.
Yes.
We've built these prisons, and now we have to fill them because Congress is asking why the budget is so high. Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's just it's another place where, and again, I say that Marvel does this better than most other things by making it feel lighthearted, but also like presenting you with the alternative of these behaviors. Like, this is what happens when you do that. And I think it was interesting to see, because it felt like everybody had pressure from somewhere, right? So he had pressure, so he was putting pressure, and then Ben Kingsley had pressure, so he was putting pressure, and Simon himself was under pressure, and so he was, and it just it was going to manifest itself somewhere in the storyline. Oh wait, remind me, I have something else to say later, because there was another favorite part I had.
Okay. I will remind you of that.
Yeah.
But I will say what both of y'all are saying are making me think some things too. This is a total side note, but from that whole pressure on, and I don't know why I don't have the list of names here, but the whole pressure on the guy that's supposed to be surveilling Ben Kingsley, and we'll just say DOJ or whoever they are, don't know who they are in this particular sense, but the fact that they do have these prisons, right, that they need to fill, that now they've built. It's funny because I just listened to kind of a history of American prisons on NPR in one of their podcasts, and how that came about. In a sense, what we're seeing is a lot of what they said in that particular podcast, which was they were doing a history of how American prisons happen, and specifically that relationship between immigrants and prisons in America, how that relationship has happened over 100 years. And it's interesting how that, and what you're just saying, which is what was going on in Wonder Man in this season, how that kind of played out, because it's very similar. But I also wanted to kind of say it's, you know, with the Doorman Clause, it's funny that they put this fear policy into place when he first got his powers accidentally and didn't know what to do with them, and then helped people with them. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we love you. That's how he became the doorman, right? That's how he got the nickname, right? So there's, we're going to put you away when we don't understand you, but we are going to appropriate everything that we like about you.
Yes, and we're going to use it up first. We're going
Right.
to take your talents.
Completely.
We're going to use them until we are, to amuse ourselves, until we are no longer amused. And then we're going to, and basically, and that's what they did to him. But the minute he said, I am more than that, I am more than this, I am
Right.
more than a doorman, all of a sudden, that's not what the people
Right.
wanted, and
They were
that's,
like, no.
yeah,
They didn't
and
know
they
where to
basically
put
threw
him.
him away. And I think
Yes.
that I, you know, X-Men in a lot of ways has talked about that. All of the Avengers talk about that as well. When, you know, they love us when we're saving the world,
Right.
but when the tables turn, they
They want to
turn.
use.
And I
Yes.
think that is, you know, it's just one of those commentaries that is true. But I think it's the same for athletes. I think it's the same for anybody who has a talent, as long as we are being amused by the talent. But when we see humanity, when they make mistakes, when they don't make the choices, we, you know, everybody loved Colin Kaepernick until he had an opinion, and he
Right.
stood on a personal belief. And the minute he was no longer amusing, then he no longer served the purpose. It didn't make his talent any less real, but it allowed people to move him off the field and to change the trajectory of his profession, because it wasn't what people wanted to see. And that was the same thing with the doorman. When he started saying, you know, I'd like to do something else. Like, I want you to see more of me than this. Then people made it seem like it was him, and that he was being ungrateful, or that he wasn't. And the truth is, he was just trying to be recognized as a whole person.
Yeah,
Right.
not just a doorman.
Just a doorman.
Right.
Right.
But I mean,
Exactly.
but when he was a real doorman, he was happy. I remember with the first
Yep.
conversation with his boss, talking about how happy he was doing his job. He likes doing whatever. He didn't really. He was fine where he was, and then once he had the power, and he became a hero, not superhero, became a hero by saving those people, and then being dragged into a totally different lifestyle.
Yep.
That really no one was helping him just cope with, in a way. I mean, when stuff was happening and someone was like, you know, he was like, oh, you need to get some more money because of this. And someone said, well, no, this is how you should have done it. And it's like, someone need to tell you the beginning of it that, hey.
He said, you didn't tell me that. And he was like, well, I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I'm broke now. I mean, I think you're right. No one was there to help him through it all, unless it was because they were trying to capitalize on his notoriety. But nobody was there to invest in him as a person. And I think that kind of juxtaposition to Trevor and Simon, I think, versus Josh and the doorman,
Right.
that was a nice kind of contrast for you to see some of those differences. But yeah, that was again, it was one of those allegories that Marvel does better than most.
Okay,
Right.
this is one thing about that dorm. Okay, so before I started watching Wonder Man, you start getting the stuff about, previews or talk about what the show or series.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew nothing about it, but I do recall, and this might be why I came on the crowd. It talked about what's his name, the guy who plays his friend, Doorman's friend, who got him
Josh
into
Gad.
Josh Gadd.
and it's like he's missing. And I was
Yeah.
like, and when they said he was missing initially, I didn't know it had nothing to do with Wonder Man. It was that he was really missing, that it was because his character's missing on that show because of what happened. I thought for a minute that, oh my God, Olaf, the guy who played Olaf is actually missing. And
Right.
I thought it was really missing until I was like, dude. And then I heard that once, and then nothing else. Like, did they find him? And then I watched that episode. I was like, oh, that's what they was. He wasn't missing in real life. It was actually his acting character was missing from the show. And I was like,
Right.
oh, okay, that explains that. So I was like, really, a whole, there's not a whole big thing about him going missing. Just
Right.
he was there, and then he's like, he was so and so, and he gone. I was like, did he get on drugs? I'm thinking to myself,
Right.
what happened?
Like,
to him?
where's the clickbait? Yeah.
But
God.
I thought that was a great episode for me.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was.
that was an awesome
It was an
episode.
awesome
Oh
episode.
my
I mean,
gosh.
I loved everything about it too. I loved the storyline itself. I loved the cinematography and the way that it was shot. I think that's one thing I'll say about the series is I love the way that it was filmed and the way that the episodes were. But that one was stellar. It deserves to be looked at award show time as the quality episode that it was. It might have been short, but it was excellent. It was perfectly executed.
Yeah. That was a great episode. I totally agree with you about kind of and how they shot this series, the pacing of this series, those kinds of things. Really liked, there were a couple of points, and I guess kind of they were more so in the beginning when we all were annoyed. Where it was like, okay, I'm just gonna watch like 1 or 2 episodes of this and then I'm done. But then you get to maybe episode 3, and it's like, gotta finish watching.
Yep.
I gotta see what happens,
Yep.
And we're gonna talk about this a little bit later about some of the cameos and things like that, but oh my gosh. But anyway, you just gotta see what happens and you get invested. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way it's the pacing of it. And it doesn't really feel like there's a low spot. I think the only time when it would have felt like there was a low spot was that episode. And that episode, because it was so good, there's no low spot in this. There's no lull before everything falls apart and then we have to fix it kind of thing, like there are in a lot of other shows. I was just watching a show where that happened. It was like there's this one episode and it's right before the poop hits the fan, and it's one of those episodes, and I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to turn this off for tonight. But I could not do that with Wonder Man.
Nope.
It just kept going. It kept going. It kept going. And then, at the end, it kept going.
Yeah.
We will continue this discussion on our next episode. Make sure you're subscribed to Nerdy Romantics Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and visit nerdyromanticspodcast.com to subscribe to our newsletter, where you can get show notes directly in your inbox. Thank you for listening.